Chapter 22. I gathered everyone together in an open part of the lawn. I'd managed to stop crying at that point, and something else was taking its place. Dr. Roop was right. Junip was not going to let us live. He was going to kill us all unless we fought back, unless we became rebels. Dr. Roop was dead, and I would mourn him properly later, but now I didn't have time to be sad. I only had time for anger. As soon as everyone was there, I tried to begin speaking, but my throat caught.
"What's wrong, Zeke?"
Alice asked.
"You look like you've been crying."
There was nothing to do but launch into it. I took a deep breath in the hopes of steadying my voice. I needed to sound calm and rational. I had to convince them that I was right. Dr. Roop is dead, I told them. He was trying to get away from the peace officers, but there was nowhere for him to go. He threw himself off the roof of that building rather than be captured. Charles called up his keyboard and began typing furiously.
"You must be mistaken. I've been monitoring the news outputs, and I've not seen anything about this. It's a busy street over there. If someone had fallen, it would cause quite a sensation."
"I saw it myself," I said. "They're covering it up."
"Did you speak with him?"
Misan asked quietly. "Yeah. He came to warn me. Junip's plan is a trap. If we try to get off the station on his ship or any other, he plans on killing us." "If we refuse to go," Colonel Rage said, "then Junip will believe we've thrown down the gauntlet, and he'll come down on us legally. Or find some other way for us to have a convincing accident." "If we do what he wants, we're going to end up dead. Or in prison," I insisted. "It's time to stop trying to work with him. We have to work against him."
"It is only the ones from Earth that he wants, not us," said Volonic, gesturing towards himself and Tamrat. "And also that reptilian fellow over here. We're not part of your spaceship mishap. He shall likely let us return to our homeworlds."
"Not being from Earth didn't help us much yesterday," Steve said. "By now, he'll figure we know what they know, which means he won't be too keen on us. I wouldn't count on any transportation that Junip arranges getting to where it is supposed to go in a safe and orderly fashion. Besides which," he added, "we don't run out on our mates."
I watched Volonic, now supposedly my brother, and without a doubt he looked agitated. If Junip knew we intended to switch spaceships, it meant someone had told him about our plans. My list of suspects was exactly one RARL long. Maybe after he'd blown the meeting with the Chief Justice, Volonic had thought he needed to do something to assure he would be able to get off the station alive. I didn't care about Volonic's reasons, even if he had turned on the rest of us because he wanted to save Tamred. We were all supposed to look after one another, not pick and choose.
"If we can't go through with the plan, then what's our move?"
Alice asked. "The Forbidden Zone," I told them about Dr. Roop's proposal, how finding the hidden skill tree would also lead us to ships we could use to escape.
"I don't see why Tamret and I should have to risk ourselves for this civilization that means nothing to us," Volonic said. "I came here to provide an escort to my betrothed, not to run around and solve problems for aliens. Your plan, Zeke, involves far too many unknowns."
"What's not unknown is what will happen if we do what Junip wants us to. If we walk into his trap, we're finished."
"That is hardly certain," Volonic said. "We just have your friend's words for that."
"I do not doubt Dr. Roop,"
Charles said, folding his arms. "Dr. Roop wouldn't lie about something like this," Misan agreed. "He just died so he could warn us that we were in danger."
"There's no debate," Steve added. "If he said it was the only way, and he gave his life to tell us that, it seems to me that we do things his way."
"I have never met him," Volonic said. "I cannot offer my opinion."
"Well, it looks like you've been doing plenty of that, mate," Steve said.
Colonel Rage had been silent until now, taking all of this in. I'd been wondering which way he was leaning, and now he finally spoke up. "I've never met this Dr. Roop either, but I know all of you, and it carries a lot of weight that those of you who know him trust him completely."
I'll be honest with you. His fight is not mine. My responsibility is to get you kids home and bring whatever alien tech I can find with me. If there's no other way to do that, and it's looking like there isn't, I'm prepared to follow Zeke's advice and find this skill tree.
He looked directly at me.
You have a plan, son?
We still have to take that ship in about 3 hours, I said. And we have to go somewhere. We can't leave the station or they'll have us. On the other hand, they can't catch us if we get to the Forbidden Zone.
Once we get there, the colonel said, finding these ships is our priority. If we see a chance to get away, that takes precedence over finding this lost software.
No, I answered, hearing the anger in my voice. We came back here to help Glee-Wixix protect the Confederation. Because we were willing to listen to her request, Junip has killed a lot of people, 3 of whom were close friends. I don't want them to have to die for nothing. And I don't want Junip to win. He wants to keep us from completing Glee-Wixix's mission so badly. I say that's reason enough to make sure we get the job done.
That's the anger talking,
Colonel Rage said. Yes, I agreed. It is.
Anyone else want to offer an opinion?
Colonel Rage asked, and when Volonic started to speak, he snapped.
Anyone but you?
I'm not really one of you,
Alice said.
so I'm sorry if this is ignorant, but it seems to me that Junip is pretty good at rigging the game. If we try and go somewhere other than the spaceport with the stolen shuttle, how do we know he won't apprehend us or shoot us down?
That's a good point, Misan said. I nodded. Yeah, it is. I think I have a workaround, but it's ugly and messy.
I like it so far,
Steve said.
Let's hear it.
I think I should sit on it until the time is right, I told him, with what I hope was a pointed glance. Dr. Roop thinks Junip learned about the plans to steal 2 ships. Maybe it's best not to take any chances? Both Steve and the Colonel seemed to understand my point, and they looked over at Volonic.
Understood, the Colonel said. Let's establish shifts, to make sure no one gets too lonely.
And just like that, it was decided. One of us would keep an eye on Volonic at all times until we left. As soon as we stood up, Volonic came over to me, with Tamrat standing a deferential distance behind him.
I want you to know that while I respect your desire to honor your friend's memory, we will not be departing with you. I have decided that we will stay and take our chances with Junip.
I couldn't allow that. I'd already promised Tamrat that I'd help her escape Rarl, and there was no way I was going to abandon her again. Besides, the minute we were gone, there would be nothing to stop Volonic from telling Junip everything he found out. That's not possible, I said to him. We all go.
I state my firm position as your brother, so you must honor my wishes.
No, I said, meeting his gaze. I mustn't.
Have you forgotten that you performed the rite of brotherhood?
I didn't perform anything. 1 minute we were talking, the next you were shoving your fingers up my nose. Tamrat stepped forward.
If he didn't understand the nature of the ritual, then it doesn't count.
Volonic turned to her.
Be reasonable, Tamrat. You know I did not give you permission to speak.
Surely there's no harm in talking to my future brother-in-law.
Well, Zeke will qualify as extended family after we're married, but until then, conversation is still at my discretion. I have been forgiving so far, but if this continues, I'm going to have to get stern with you.
I moved closer to Volonic. You touch her, you're going to spend the rest of your life eating out of a straw. Volonic held up his hands.
Zeke, my brother, where is this hostility coming from?
It's coming from me refusing to let you hurt Tamrat.
Hurt her?
He asked, genuinely incredulous.
I was speaking of punishments, not inflicting harm. Do you forget that I have agreed to marry her? I don't think you understand what I've done to help her.
I understand she's not allowed to speak to her friends, and now you're threatening her.
I want her to be respected and successful in our social circles,
Volonic said.
I don't think that is wishing her ill.
I get that you have your traditions, I said, but maybe for the rest of the time we're here on Confederation Central, it would be easier if you were a little more relaxed about the rules.
Of course,
He said, waving his hands wildly.
That's a wonderful idea. I say, let's take off all our clothes and start eating Rarl flesh. Who's with me?
What's this about eating flesh?
Steve asked, walking up to us.
Zeke wants us to be naked cannibals,
Volonic said. I really, really don't want that, I said. What I want is for Tamret to be able to talk to me without you butting in.
I speak for both of us. I can't understand why Tamret's silence is so troubling to you.
Because the last time Tamret and I spent any time together, we did a lot of crazy, impossible stuff, and we survived. A big part of that was our ability to talk to each other without you sticking your snout between us. Snout? Tamret repeated, folding her arms. Steve touched the side of his mouth.
What's wrong with having a snout, Flatface?
There's nothing wrong with a snout, as long as it's not in the middle of my business, I just about shouted.
Though you are my brother,
Volonic said,
it almost seems you don't understand some very basic things. Tamret does not have any business that is not also mine.
She does if we want to avoid getting killed, I told him. And I don't care how many times you mash my face with your palm, you're not my brother. Volonic took a step back.
Not your brother, but we performed the ritual.
I don't care about your ritual. But that's the least of the reasons why you're not my brother. Topping the list is the fact that I don't like you and I don't trust you. You're a domineering jerk who doesn't understand that trying to micromanage Tamret's every conversation is not only cruel, but it's going to get us all killed. Just like Urch, and Dr. Roop, and Nyana. Nyana, by the way, who Tamret made her sister. She did it without any weird face grabbing, and it actually meant something. They looked after each other. You didn't know the people we lost, and it's clear you don't care. But they were my friends, and Nyana was Tamret's family. Now they're dead because we have some real enemies with real power coming for us, so you need to stop getting in our way.
It seems to me that they're all dead because you have some real enemies,
Volonic said, folding his arms, raising his chin in triumph.
Not us. You. And knowing that everything bad that has happened is your fault, I still chose to show my gratitude by making you my brother. And this is how you thank me?
I stepped forward and jabbed him in the chest with a finger. He'd crossed a line. Your pal Junip is responsible for their deaths. Him. And anyone who works with him. You try to say it's my fault again, and you'll regret it. Volonic took a step back.
I'm sorry if my perspective is so distasteful to you. I thought that perhaps after all we'd been through you would be interested in my opinion.
I'm interested in you doing what I tell you. Otherwise, we're going to leave you behind. Not you and Tamret. Just you. Do you understand me? Volonic stared at me, and I swear he looked like he was going to cry.
He wants to know if you understand him, mate,
Steve said, his voice surprisingly quiet and all the more imposing for it. Volonic gave a single nod and turned away. His shoulders were hunched and he seemed to be shaking. I didn't like the guy. In fact, I kind of hated his guts, but I hadn't meant to break him. I started to walk away to give Volonic some privacy while he picked up the pieces of his broken dignity. But Tamret came after me. I thought maybe she wanted to thank me, but it turned out I'd misread yet another situation.
You didn't have to do that,
Tamret said, her voice hard. That pretty much took care of my regret. Are you serious? The guy treats you like you're his property.
Because I am, according to our law, she said. You may not like it, and neither do I. But he's a lot nicer to me than he has to be. He's no one's idea of a hero, but in his own way he wants what's best for me. There's no need to humiliate him.
I can't believe you're defending him. He's so bossy.
He saved me from a whole lot worse than being bossed around when there was no one else standing up for me. The way I remember it, you promised to be there for me, but you were nowhere to be found. I guess you were too busy with your new friend over there.
She flicked her hand towards Alice and walked off to go speak to Volonic. I stood there, stunned. The last thing I wanted was to fight with Tamret. And if I was going to fight with her about something, I sure didn't want it to be about Volonic. I knew I should say something to smooth things over, but she'd stung me about as hard as she could have. I hadn't been there for her. Volonic had been, and maybe I had no right to judge him. I was furious with her, and with myself. I wanted to curl up into a ball and cry, and let someone else make the hard decisions for once. Why couldn't Colonel Rage take charge? Tamrat had already walked away from me and was now talking quietly to Volonic. I felt the breaths coming hot into my nose, and I snorted them out again like a dragon. Somehow, impossibly, I shoved my feelings down. I buried them for another time. I stepped forward and gently put my fingers on her arm. "Listen," I said, "I wish things could have been different." She shrugged me off.
I'm having a private conversation right now. Can you give us some space?
So much for burying my feelings. I bit back 1,000 rejoinders. There was just too much at stake right now. "Fine," I said. "Just play your emotional games on your own time. I need you to bring your A game when things get serious."
You don't have to worry about that.
She said, but she wouldn't meet my eye. I turned away from them. Steve came up to me.
One of us will be on Volonic until go time. He won't be sending any secret messages to anyone.
I let out a breath. The last thing I wanted to do now was shadow them around. "Thanks, Steve. That helps."
That's what mates are for, he said.
He moved off to stand near Volonic and Tamrat. He looked about as natural as a necktie on a platypus, but I didn't care. It didn't matter if Volonic suspected we were onto him as long as he didn't communicate with Junip. I looked away and saw a bush waving at me from across the lawn. I rushed over to talk to it.
"You heard, bro?"
It asked sadly. I nodded. "Yeah, I can't believe it."
"He was like, amazing,"
the bush said sadly.
"but he knew the risks, and he did what was right because he had to. I hope you'll do the same."
It reached out with one of its branches and touched my data bracelet. A string of numbers flashed and then vanished into an unnamed file. The screen prompted me to give it a name.
"Nothing too obvious, in case you're captured."
"What is it?" I asked.
"The map Dr. Rook told you about. You'll need to decrypt it, but don't even try until you're where, you won't be followed. Good luck to you, Zeke. We're all counting on you."
I named the file Math Problems and closed it, nodding at the bush, but it was already walking away.